What is the best way to navigate being fired from a job without a fuck you fund in order to stay in high self-worth?
Well, if your trust muscle is strong, it could be very simple for you. Let me think to the times I've done this in my life. If honestly, when you get to a place where your trust muscle is really strong, you're very unblocked, you're very expanded, you won't need fuck you funds anymore. It won't matter at all because the next thing will come through so quickly when you're ready for it. But if you aren't in those spaces, the most important things to do right now is to be unblocking constantly, expanders constantly, and passing tests. And you are going to be tested most likely it'll get very scary at some point where you won't have things. It's so hard to stay in your worth with testing at this level if you've had very low self-worth from the thing you've left. And usually it's very telling if you've left something without a fuck you fund, you just couldn't take it anymore, so you left. So usually your worth is very low, right? If you just couldn't take it anymore energetically, it was an environment that wasn't great for you or treating you well, or maybe you're just a wild Aries, I don't know. But it is so important to be unblocking and expanding right now. And if you are, the universe is always going to be there to help you, so even if you do have to take a test bridge job, kind of like the first question, it's going to be very important once you have that little bit of stability again to be looking for the next bridge job that's actually really in alignment with what you want. And you are just going to be, again, accruing tests. And that's okay. It's totally fine. Tests are hard and they get very easy as your trust muscle gets stronger, but then you're going to be manifesting a subject that, again, is really on the Achilles heel of something that is your core issue, like whether it's security, that can always be mine. And then the tests are going to get really hard again. And so that's just a part of this process. And when you do get that trust muscle in ratio to other things you've manifested before, you're going to be able to have a little bit of like an invisible vine to grab onto as you're leaping through for the next thing. So even if you're accruing tests, it's part of life you're living, and it's hard. And this whole experience of hardness is actually going to be the coolest thing that defines you in the long run. I've been through that so many times in my life. And if you don't have a fuck you fund, this in itself is a learning lesson, and that's fine. And you can work your ass off to be expanding. And the biggest thing right now is getting into your worth. And it doesn't mean superficial getting into your worth. I got to talk about this energetic actually a little bit because people get this very confused. And part of the reason that I approach this work the way that I do is to make it as actionable and tangible as possible, because we're talking about energetic. So it's actually really hard to distill that down into actionable, formulaic steps. So I want to talk about the worth piece, because if you don't understand it, there can be falseness in worth, right? I'll give an example, like somebody who's been in a job for a little while, hasn't proved their worth, and they're like, well, I should be the directors of this thing because they're so in their worth. Well, that's not worth. Worthiness actually is usually accompanied by quiet humbleness and quiet gracefulness, because you're so worthy, there's nothing to prove. You're seen, things come to you so simply and easily. So there's sometimes this thing that people can do that's a fake egoic worth. That's not worth. It's all energetics. You can't lie to energy. There's, energy is moving. So if you're like, oh, well, I'm really in my worth, when I take this next job, I'm not going to, subconsciously, are you really in your worth? Have you gotten there? So right now, the key thing to be working on is getting in your worth. And that's a lot of unblocking, a lot of expanding, finding your surrender, finding your gracefulness right now. That's real worth. That's the energetic you need when you don't have a fuck you fund and you're navigating this next step.